George Fevet.
Here.
Victoria Helander-Heiser.
Here.
Robin Cleek.
Here.
Wes Pullen here. Matt Jacobs.
Here.
Sonali Patel.
Here. 7 present, 0 absent. Anybody from the public wishes to comment? Going once, twice. Okay. Before we begin our meeting, we would like, the Board of Education would like to recognize Officer John Parrott for his 4 years of service with District 73, and you'll be missed. The kids are used to seeing you, and there'll be different kids now, but
He'll see them when they go to college.
yes. But you should come and visit us.
Now's your chance to make comments.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Like to say something?
Sure.
It's your last chance to say something.
Yeah. In my
Drive safe.
32 years,
Name and address, please.
in my 32 years of being an officer, if you would have asked me when I was still a rookie, the last thing that would have been in my mind is that I would have been working at a school. Now that I've done that for the 4 years, it was actually the best 4 years of my law enforcement experience.
Wow.
Between working with all the kids, all the staff, and all the board members, everybody here, you've made it great, and the kids have made it great. And believe it or not, that was one of the things that was in my mind when I was moving on to doing something else, figuring I can still be in a school now and still try to have that connection between students and myself, trying to hopefully mold them a little better. So thank you very much for the opportunity that you guys have given me. Go Hawthorne.
Thank you.
We'd also like to recognize late Robert Spitzer for their donation of the fossil collection. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Spitzer for donating the fossils.
And we have a sample up here, actually. Quite interesting. Is there a story to it, maybe?
Would you like to say a few words?
No, thank you.
But thank you so much. Our students will definitely benefit from this.
Very nice.
Precedence discussion items. Vicki, would you like to give the EdRed report?
Sure. If you'd like me to start with that.
Sure.
I know at the last meeting I mentioned that I would get a summary to all of you of EdRed, but the meeting I went to on Friday was a little bit different than most meetings in that it was almost exclusively conducted by an attorney on the new Illinois labor standards as they affect schools. So I do have a lengthy handout. If any of you would like to take a look at that, you are so welcome to it. I'd be happy to send it to you. But it was not the typical EdRed meeting, so that's why you didn't get a summary from me. There were just a couple of things that might just be of interest to you. I know there was some discussion about the House Bill 3606, cybersecurity, and the concerns about the undue burden that places on faculty members and people within the school. EdRed did report that there is a committee right now that is advocating significant concessions to that bill's language. So it has a long way to go yet. And EdRed indicated they would keep us up to date on that, all of the members up to date, but I don't think we're going to see anything on that anytime soon. Teacher licensing is also undergoing some pretty significant changes. There is a great debate right now about the importance of testing for teachers and whether or not the basic skills test will remain as part of criteria for teacher certification. That is a big deal too. Again, we're looking at a lot of different committees looking at this, a lot of debate, so I doubt that there will be any action on that anytime soon. And then finally, there is also an appeals process that is underway right now for teachers receiving an unsatisfactory rating in their evaluation. And there's a strong feeling that there should be a better remediation process. The Performance Evaluation Advisory Council is looking at that. So that too is in the midst of a lot of study right now. And again, I doubt that we're going to see any action on that in the near future.
Thanks,
The
Vicky.
other thing that just came out late this afternoon was the PE mandate, and it's the hottest topic in Springfield right now, mandating additional time for PE at all 3 levels. It's being opposed by our organizations, so it's an unfunded mandate. So I think we need to pay close attention to the fact that we could be forced to increase the number of minutes that students get for PE with no additional funding to support the cost of that.
There was a very limited discussion on that on Friday because this was probably all going on. But
Heated up this afternoon, big time.
yes,
Yeah.
but high schools, it looks like, are going to be exempt from it.
Yes,
so
the
it's
high school.
only going to apply to elementary schools and those elementary schools that are not on the economic watch list.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and because they're mandating minutes of 150 for the elementary and the middle school would be 225, so that would eat into our, and this mandate would only apply to P, and we do not have any such mandate for any of our other core topics. So these minutes would normally come out of our core topics if the mandate goes through, because otherwise it would mean increasing the school day, which would cost dollars, and they're not going to give us money for those dollars. We'll run those numbers later a bit, and we will present them at the next meeting as to how much it would cost us if it did really go through.
Well, the state will do that for us.
Yeah.
We'll get a printout on that.
Yeah.
So we should, I wouldn't worry too much about this right now because it's got to really navigate uphill with EdRed against it, the alliance of all the administrator groups and all the other organizations, school board associations, all against it right now as it's written. So, but it's something to keep an eye on. We need to be worried.
No, I was just trying to tell the community why we are against it is because of the mandate and the minutes and stuff. So
Exactly.
because it would land up costing us, and it would eat into our core curriculum time if the mandate did go through, because otherwise that would mean increasing time, which would cost us money which we don't have, because they won't give us money to increase our school days. So that's it. Next would be the kindergarten building update.
Okay. Let's do it together.
Sure.
And we have some other things on
Okay.
the superintendent's report.
Okay.
So the first item on the superintendent's report, it really reflects item number 7, and that's the announcement that we have a new school resource officer, Officer Lonergan. Like I had said earlier, I had the unfortunate opportunity to meet him for 3 failed fingerprint attempts, but we got it right, and he's very familiar with our school. So he's already here working, and he's a good addition. Really nice guy.
And he couldn't come because he was at duty today.
Yes.
I mean, he had a prior commitment and a duty. Otherwise, we had invited him to come to introduce him to the community.
The second item on the superintendent's report is we need to talk about our reorganization meeting. So the reorganization meeting involves swearing in our new board members, saying goodbye to our board members that are leaving, and electing officers. So the law requires us to do it by the 30th of April. We can set an earlier date. The date that we've set initially in our calendar was the 22nd. It's running real tight with the ability of the county clerk's office to get the results in by the 22nd. The second possibility could be the 25th, Thursday of that week, or we could wait till the 29th, the Monday, right before the due date. It's really up to us. So the Monday would be the sure thing. Probably the Thursday would be okay too, the 25th. We're anticipating getting those results prior to the 25th, but we don't control them. So we've seen in the past where that date hasn't been met. Not saying that that's the same thing that's going to happen right now. So while we're together, we probably should discuss which date works best for us, the 25th, a Thursday, or the 29th, a Monday, and then indicate that that would be our reorganization meeting date.
So the 25th is open house at EN.
It's
So,
elementary north.
Yeah, so I've got 2 kids I would like to hear sing, but if I can't, I'm sure they would forgive me.
Otherwise, the 29th, does the 29th work for everybody?
Yeah.
We can do it on Monday, the 29th.
Well, can I just ask a quick question then? If we have a currently scheduled board meeting for the 22nd, can we cancel that and then put it all on the 29th?
Oh, yeah, we're canceling
yeah.
it, yes, yeah.
This will take the
Okay,
place of
so we're
that.
not having 2 separate?
No.
No, thank you.
Yes, we'll cancel the 22nd.
Jason was gonna quit.
Yeah. Jason's
Down
just
to
gotta
2,
hang out a
not
little
3.
bit longer.
Jason's like, I have a vacation coming up to celebrate this. 29th is fine with me.
Yeah, works for me.
Does that
Okay,
work for
I'm fine.
everybody?
So 29th,
Okay.
29th
We'll give
April,
us that.
Monday. And then we'll just send out a notice to cancel our 22nd meeting and
Mhm.
add this one on.
And then we want to share some information with you. Abe and I had the opportunity to meet with Val Donnan and Barb Watson from CEDAW. They're planning quite a bit of work for Powers. Good work. They're putting in a security vestibule, putting in new bathrooms. They're adding, help me out with some of the other
A
things.
PA system.
There is a very unique PA system that has to go into Powers. As you can imagine, students with hard of hearing issues, a special type of a PA system needs to go in there. So they're putting that in, and a few other cosmetic and positive things for Powers, which again should allay the fears that they're thinking of pulling out and abandoning Powers. They're sinking quite a bit of money into it this summer. It's going to start the day school has ended. So we should see the security vestibule critical, really a key. And nowadays, there are no schools that don't have some type of a security piece to prevent people from coming in that don't belong. So good stuff at Powers, and it's happening. The next item is the 1920 calendar, school year 19/20. We still don't have an opening from the State Board of Education to submit our calendar. So we're waiting. Bobby checks just about every day. Checked today, we still did not get that. So the state is waiting, and I think they're waiting for the legislature to determine just where the number of days in a school year are going to go. However, we will stick, and people who are concerned about, am I taking a vacation? When is the first day of school? Staff is concerned about the first day of school. I think you can pretty well rest assured the front end of the calendar that we've already published, that'll stay the same. That won't change. The only thing that might change is the back end of the calendar, where there may be a day shorter at the end or longer. So we have to wait until we actually get that formal approval. But I think we're good for you to make your plans to determine, hey, if we're taking a vacation in August, what day do we need to be back for the first day of school? Your staff member, when's the first institute day? So that part you can kind of bank on. As soon as we get the okay, we'll plaster the whole community with, here's the real calendar. So, and we're watching that every single day. Any questions about that? The
And
next,
the Christmas and the spring break would stay the same,
They're
right?
staying the
Because
same,
they
yeah.
match with the high school calendar.
we're
So
not going to
peop-
monkey with the
Correct.
fact that the
So-
high
so-
school has.
So people
That's what
want to
people
make
mainly
plans,
want to know.
make
Right.
plans, they'll stay there.
So folks, go ahead, best you can. We'll get this formally approved. I've never seen anything where it's been held up like this. This is something extremely new. The next 2 items are things that we've been kind of waiting to unfold, and one impacts the second. The first is the administrative team has met a couple of times to discuss what are we going to be naming the new building? What is the name for the new building? We bandied this about, we took a lot of different pieces of input. I look at Allison sitting back there, Allison Stein, and I say, we'll blame her because she had this, she came up with this name, and we'd like to share this. We're not asking for a vote or anything. We'd like to share the name and see your reaction. So we will no longer call it the Sullivan Center. This is the District 73 building. So
Is that the name?
fire away, Dimitri. Da-da-da-da, beat the drums and
Like airplay.
The Mark Friedman Center.
Not
If he pays for it, I'll call it that.
yeah, I'll write a check.
Yes, Mark, please.
So this is what we came up with. It's a parallel term to the dual language school. And if you look at it and you let it sink in a little bit, it's not named after any individual person. It's the Hawthorne School for Young Learners, just as the dual language school is for dual language learners. Where Young Minds Bloom, we took from the initial discussions that the staff had about the school taking young minds and making them bloom. And that was in the initial drawing that the architects had.
Bloom Elementary.
And so we borrowed that a little bit. And this is what we came up with in Hawthorne colors. Thank you, Dimitri, for coming up with the Hawthorne colors. Now, this isn't something that we have to take a formal vote. We could take a consensus. We could sit with it, and somebody thinks they could do better. We could go with that. It is not easy to come up with a name. And we want identity to be Hawthorne's. It's not a Park District school. It's not a village school. It's not a community school. It's a school district school. So, any comments?
Jason.
Speechless.
They're blown away.
Speechless.
They love it.
No comment.
You guys decide.
You get to say it.
I know.
Last 2 meetings, you can say whatever you want.
Well, how
Don't
much
say
time do you
that.
have?
That's
No, I
a different
think it's good.
conversation.
I have no.
Anybody?
Need to dwell on it for a little
I was
bit.
gonna say,
You
I'm
wanna
fine
just
sitting with it
reflect
for a
on
little,
it
yeah.
while?
It could sit, yeah.
Yeah.
It could sit. It doesn't have to be
We can come
decided
back to
today. But we're getting close to that point. Abe's going to talk about the next steps for construction. And so as a result, we want to get this thing incorporated into all our discussions on the blueprints and everything we
Sure.
do. It was just kind of sitting out there. We said, we got to do something here. We can't let it just be nameless. The nameless school for young learners, you know?
If you don't care for it, you have to
Staff?
come up with something that's better. So
Yeah.
you can't just say, I
Yeah,
don't
I like
it.
that, Joe. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Aaron, anybody have a comment?
Sandy? Yes. And according to George, you have to state your name and address. No.
Okay.
So you can just say.
The first thing that came to mind was the Park District. I think their preschool program is called
Little
Little
learners.
Little learners.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody would get. I mean, I see it says Hawthorne and big yellow, but that was the first thing.
That's
I
our
thought.
identity.
Park
We
District
wanted to
has
create
something.
our identity right off the bat.
Right,
So that's her
So
concern, is that the
Hawthorne-
Park District,
Okay.
little learners sounds very similar to young learners.
right. That's all. I thought.
We take your comment and run with it.
How much is each letter to put on the building? No, I'm just kidding. Because we might need to shorten this.
You could abbreviate.
That's a tough one.
HSYL.
Right. Mike Shank just volunteered to donate a letter, did you hear that?
HSYL is what we call it.
We do have a habit of abbreviating or nicknaming things.
Yes.
What kind of nicknames are we going to end up with?
School for
Like,
young learners.
you know,
is
we'll
what
say
I
dual
think.
language. We'll say Aspen. We'll say, what are we gonna? I mean, just make sure it comes up with something that catches, because otherwise, folks are gonna struggle.
It will probably be known as the Hawthorne Kindergarten School.
True.
You know, that's what the reality of it is. but this has much more formality to it.
This
Does
this
it-
opens up the possibility for pre-K too.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's what I
yes.
like.
I like the
about it.
kindergarten wasn't in there.
Gives
'cause
us
you could-
all
It could
kinds of
always
long-term-
be expanded
Yeah.
to early childhood at any point.
Take a bow, Allison. You're not getting beat up on this. It was a collaborative.
Oh, look at her trying to get away from it now.
So we'll let you
Let's
sit with
reflect
it.
and then we'll come back.
But we want to get this thing moving because, as
Dr.
you'll
Hannigan,
see,
you're going to live with it. Your thoughts?
he's good.
Jason used that line. We'll
go with cheap letters. Don't light
Yeah.
up. So as part two of this, and we'll transition on, Abe is going to now give you an update. We're getting close to that time when the shovels are going to go in the ground. So,
Thank you. So on March 28th, the Park District Board also approved the construction contracts for this project. Contracts are currently being prepared for signature this Friday on the 12th. There are 7 permit applications in various states of approval. We hope to have everything complete and ready for site work to begin on May 1st. So that's a key date for us to begin groundbreaking work. I mentioned during the financing of these bonds, there's actually a savings of $2 million for the refunding of the old bonds, $1.5 million in savings for the Sullivan bonds as well. What we communicated during the referendum were conservative numbers. The reality came in much more positive for this district as well as the taxpayers. Some major milestones within the schedule. I mentioned the May 1st site preparation date. Building foundation work would occur between May and June. Precast structures, you would physically see those going up between July and September. The elevator would actually go in October. Interior build-out would then begin in November through February with a potential owner move-in date of April 7th, 2020. Are there any questions related to the update that was provided over the weekend?
Numbers
Wanted
look
to
good,
make-
Abe.
weather dependent.
So I'm glad that you brought up the fact that we'd saved 1.5, 2 millions on the bonds. Just want to make it clear to the public that the way bond financing works is the board, with the voters' approval, levy a dollar amount, or we go out for a dollar amount, and we levy whatever taxes is necessary to pay off for those bonds. Is that correct? So if the cost of those bonds are now less, we levy less. So it's a direct impact to the taxpayer on these savings. It's not like the district now all of a sudden has a 1.5 or $2 million in the bank that we can spend elsewhere. That's not the case. We have a direct impact because we have to levy less because it costs us less.
The debt services bond are direct. We don't get involved with that. That's direct through the referendum. For tax year 2019, the average $350,000 homeowner would have saved $20 as a result of the favorable bond rating and the lower interest rates we got for 2019.
I had a question which is more a cosmetic question, for a lack of a better word. We have the site work on May 1st. This building is an IGA with our park district and the village. Are we doing something along with the naming ceremony of the site, as well as are we planning on doing anything towards?
So we're in conversation
Okay.
to set something up for early May.
Okay.
Correct.
Do you mean like
That's
a
in-
groundbreaking
Yes.
ceremony?
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
Yes.
something like that.
Shovel in the ground. Everybody wears the hats. And
Because it's an IGA, it's just not us, so we have to coordinate
Right.
that with the.
Right.
I already have her.
What?
Yeah.
So do I.
if you haven't done that, it's saved for posterity. Put in a time capsule. So 50 years from now, when they open it up and they see who was here when this building was built.
So we should put our picture in
We'll
it?
be, yeah, absolutely. We're going to come up with something like that.
Okay.
Okay. The next is the press packet 99, press policy, which was done by the subcommittee of Dr. Porto, Wes, and Bobby.
Okay, we're going to give you a little update. Press is the program that is available to all school districts in the state. It helps school districts stay up to date with their policies, and it's a school board's responsibility to create policies, vote on them, maintain them, and every time the legislature meets, there's new laws passed, and it would become virtually impossible for school districts to keep up to date. So the press service is a tremendous asset to districts. The board decided in the fall that we would try to do our updating process in a more efficient manner. And so a subcommittee formed rather than to try to do this as a whole group of 7, which can be very cumbersome. So I wanted to just thank Bobby and Wes. We met together. And the way this is going to work, everybody, is kind of like a little bit like the consent agenda. We did a lot of the legwork. We're going to make some recommendations. We're going to pull a couple of things out that needed further discussion. But just like a consent agenda, if there's anything that catches your eye and that you want further discussion, you can do that. So we took a look at press number 99. There were 65 things to look at. And these things that we look at are policies, administrative procedures, and exhibits, which are examples. We also had 17 what they call 5-year reviews, where no change has been made by press, but they still recommend that a district look at their policy and make sure it's still working for them. So we met, we looked at all 65 policies, we looked at all 17 5-year reviews. It sounds like a gigantic task, but I just put a couple numbers together so you could get an idea. Of the 65 pieces that we looked at, only 35 of those were actually policies, and the policies are the most important. There were 17 administrative procedures, 13 exhibits. We looked at those, we considered those, but we spent most of our time on the 35 policies. Now listen to this, out of the 35 policies, 17 of them had no change except for a couple of footnotes and citations. So those became pretty easy to deal with. So when it came down to it, we really were just looking at 18 policies that were changed. And our job as a committee is we looked at all 65. We took particularly close look at the 35 policies and very close look at the 18 that were actually policy changes. Most of the time, the policies that were changed was in respect to a brand new law. I'll just give you 2 examples. A new law was changed that said, for instance, that every school district now has to have an active shooter drill once a year. So in that particular policy, the language from the new law went in. So those we kind of called pretty much no-brainers. You know, the law changed, we changed with it. So the list that we gave you that's in your packet is a list of everything we looked at. Of the 65 pieces of new documentation, we're recommending that you approve 62 of those. It's just like consent agenda, though. If there's anything that you want more information, we'd be happy to talk to you. But our committee looked at it, looked at the new law, looked at the wording, and decided that it was appropriate for us to move forward. So we're only here tonight to report that. You're not voting tonight. You always take a look at it 1 month, vote the next. But there are 3 items that we wanted a little further discussion. The first one is something that we're going to actually ask you to decide quickly and adopt tonight because it affects our next meeting when we swear in new board members. So the first thing we wanted to mention is that there's a new board member oath. It was in your packet. It's real nice. It's a little bit longer now. It's a little bit more comprehensive. We thought it was nice, and our subcommittee recommends not only that we adopt it, but that we adopt it tonight so that we can use it at our next meeting. Wonder just real quickly, anybody have any problem or issue with that?
No.
Can you just talk a little bit on the rationale for the additions?
I really don't know, Jason.
Good answer.
I just being honest.
Okay.
This was something that these press folks and the legislator gets together. They presented it. We looked at it. It looks pretty nice.
They seem vague yet very specific at the same time. The action of shall serve, shall strive, shall assist is quite vague, but what they're saying that we're going to do is very specific. So to me, it seems like they're trying to address very specific items,
But
Not
still
address-
give wiggle room.
but still give a lot of wiggle room and then completely ignore a whole bunch of everything else that the board does. So it's almost like, what's the point? What do we really gain with these additions? And I don't see it. That's why I was asking if you know
Yeah.
the rationale. for the addition.
Unfortunately, it did not come with a rationale.
Well, this was, it was, the law was amended, and it was effective this year, and it just says added, so what this amendment did is it added 6 additional board member responsibilities to the school board member oath of office to ensure compliance. Those members that are newly elected or appointed and returning by reappointment and or reelection should take the oath as the policy directs it to be administered.
It matches up with some law changes about board responsibilities.
We have so much other responsibility that's not covered by that. It's just.
So
if
maybe
you're
it's
gonna
not an
have-
exhaustive list when we're
Then
all.
why put them in there? It seems like the
Right.
first 4 items kind of cover everything as a broad umbrella, and then they put in 4 items that are, or 5 items that are quite specific, but really have no teeth in what they're saying that you're affirming to. I guess I just don't get why.
You'd have to take it up with the people who amended the, or
So does the
Law.
board have an option to,
You can keep the old oath. This was not a mandate.
okay,
You know, some of this is, it's a reminder also.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Of your role and
Right.
responsibilities. And I think that's a way of doing it when you bring a new person on board, or someone wins an election and they're sworn in again. Hey, don't forget you were sworn in 4 years ago. Here are the principles that we
Yeah.
expect you to live
I think
by.
it's good stuff, and I've never had anybody waive this in the future saying, "What about this?" So it's up to you.
I prefer an
It's-
oath to be general, I don't know, encompassing, but then not get into the nitty-gritty details of these. Some of these specific items are very specific, and then they completely ignore many other things that the board should think about and consider and everything else, so. It's like, well,
Any other comments on it? We'll bring it up as an action item, and as you know, after it gets seconded, we'll open it up for discussion and have a vote.
Okay.
Thanks. The other 2 items, we need a little bit, we had a consensus in our subcommittee, but they were items where we agreed as a committee, I think we better at least ask. So the first one I want to talk about is number 7:270, administrating medicine to students. Here's what changed. They put in optional, and so whenever it's optional, it needs a discussion. They put in optional language that a school district can now buy extra asthma medication, like a inhaler, mister, have it not designated to a particular student and have it just available in the district nurses' offices for use in a case of an emergency. It sounds like, they're wanting to give school districts more flexibility to help a kid in distress. But once we started talking about it, we were wondering if that might be a slippery legal slope to start going down, where we're administering medication to a child that it hasn't been prescribed to. And are we better off calling 911 and just taking care of it that way? So we in a subcommittee, and Wes, tell me if I'm wrong, I think we were a little wary about it. And since it wasn't a mandate, we thought maybe we'd just let this one go. It just seemed like we were taking on an additional responsibility that is not required. And it's usually best practice to not take on more than you already have to.
And the other,
Thoughts from the board?
the
Go
other
ahead,
issue
Wes.
that came up too was, who was going to be responsible for training
Right.
staff on using it. So there's a lot of, I guess, unknowns. So we thought that we should have a board discussion.
Anybody want to chime in?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do we have the undesignated epinephrine policy? And what are our rules and regulations on that? Who's training it? Who's carrying it? Where is it carried? Is it carried everywhere? Because, the students might not necessarily be in the nurse's office, and if we
Yeah,
have
that one's-
undesignated policy, then we need to make sure it's on the soccer field or it's in the, when they go to
Right.
Waukegan for basketball games. I mean, it has to be everywhere. So what is that policy that we have? Like, I'm sorry, I didn't look it
That's
up.
okay. That's my understanding that one is not optional. So we are required to have those extra EpiPens and such. But this new one on asthma is optional.
Okay, but
I need to chime in for 1
Go ahead.
second. You don't have to carry it everywhere. When it's undesignated, it can stay in the nurse's office for use should some kid who has not been diagnosed previously have their first reaction at school. There's no reasonable expectation that epinephrine travel. Those epinephrine shots are anywhere from $300 to $600 a piece. We're not going to have enough so that it goes literally everywhere our students go. There could be 3 field trips going on that day. We're not sending out $900 worth of epinephrine if there's no known allergy going. As far as training and administering, we don't have a single nurse here who's not already trained in administering either of these medications. Of course they're trained in administering asthma medications. We have 4,300 students. We've got kids here with asthma in every building, I'm sure. Same with food allergies. Like that's, to me, both as a parent of a food allergic child, as well as an attorney, I think the liability of having this be available as an option and not implementing it is far more dangerous than the other way around. That's just me.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
What did the nurses say? What did the nurses say? Is this something they've been asking for?
No. We did not get nurses' input on that. This is policy that came from the state level.
I mean, here's the other thing, especially when it comes to the epinephrine junior doses, so not the full adult dose, but the ones that would apply to people under 65 pounds. If you gave that injection and it wasn't necessary, it's not going to do any harm. It's going to give you a fast heartbeat for a couple hours. If you need it, it helps, but if you don't need it, it's, my doctor has always said, if you're ever wondering, just give it. It's not going to hurt. But I think should we need it and it's not there, I think, 911, an asthma attack, anaphylaxis, you don't have time to mess around with 911. You don't. You've got about 4 minutes to get the injection in them, and then you're in big trouble. So I have...
Okay. This is good. This is why
So-
we brought it to your attention.
Similar
like to
to
hear
the
other
it's
viewpoints.
similar to the AEDs that we have throughout our district, right? So
Right, they don't travel with us.
that was not here 15 years ago, and now we have them pretty much everywhere in our district. They don't travel with us. They're available at the fields and the schools. Not everybody's trained on them, but every one of them has put this here, put this there, push this button. The EpiPens have the exact same thing. I mean, my wife has them. I can read
Right.
it. It says, pull
Mine
this
is-
tab, pop this, stab.
And the
So-
AviQ
so-
brand actually talks to you.
Oh yeah, so there's
Yeah.
those.
Robin, your point about possibly having more liability, not doing it was very powerful.
I'm in
And we
same-
didn't think about,
Yeah.
we were thinking of it in the other direction, but that's quite insightful.
This is why we,
Yeah.
it's important to have the
I
board
was in the
discussion.
same boat with Robin. Mike, I have a kid with a food allergy, and I was thinking the same thing. I think the liability of not having him is greater than
Okay.
having them.
Vicky,
Anything
any
that
thoughts?
could protect a child in
Right.
an event, you want to have it. So
Okay.
what's wrong with having extra protection?
Exactly.
Not anything wrong at all.
Even an inhaler is not really going to do any damage if they weren't truly having an asthma attack and that was administered. The risk, I think when you're looking at a risk reward type of analysis, I think it's far safer to have that there for the child who was undiagnosed prior to that one attack.
Vicky?
I guess my initial reaction was why open us up to potentially a more libelous or, situation, but I get Robin's point too.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah. Sounds
Are
like,
there
I'm seeing nodding and such, it sounds like we could, when it's time to vote, we can put the optional language in there then, and that'll be our policy.
Is there legal protection for anyone who
You know,
does this?
we'll double check,
Yes,
Jason,
the
but
district has
I'm
an
gonna say
umbrella.
yes,
Okay.
right?
The
Mark?
district has an umbrella
Yeah.
liability.
Yeah.
From a
All
coverage
staff.
point, but from
And
a
since this came-
Illinois law point of view,
This came from the
Well, like
state
Good
level, I
Samaritan
think
law.
there's
yeah,
some
something like a
protection
Good
too.
Samaritan law or something like that that says,
All right,
you're doing it in the best interest,
Good
what you
Samaritan
got,
law.
something like
Okay.
that, then that takes care of the opening us up for the liability part.
Great.
And these recommendations come from the legal advisors.
Yeah, press is
to
almost
IASB,
all legal
so-
people.
They're not gonna ask us
You
to
can
do
tell by
something
the
that
way the
opens us up.
policies are written. So yeah, they wouldn't have presented it if there was a problem. So this is great. This is why we brought that one to you. The second one, the last one, is kind of minor, but we just thought, again, it was kind of important. It was another optional one, and it has to do with free and reduced food services.
Joe, just a second.
Oh, yeah,
In the medical distinct, there's also the administration of medical cannabis.
That's a new law that has to be in there.
It has to be
It's
in there.
Ashley's law.
No, I know it's an Ashley's law, but
Right.
but you have an opt out if we can lose federal funding. So what is our legal response on that? Is like, because you do not have to follow that law, or you do not have to administer medical cannabis if you can lose federal funding. And federal funding, it does stay in the policy that you should check with your legal counsel to see if you
Okay.
will lose federal funding. So we need to know if we will
Okay.
lose federal
We'll-
funding.
Wasn't that the one that we sent to legal? Because there was a couple that were sent.
Yeah. I'll double check. We will have the answer to that before we ask you to vote on that.
Okay, because I know it's Ashley's law, but it also needs legal side oversight.
Thanks. I doubt that that's going to be affect us. We get very few funds from federal, but we'll check. Great. Anything else before we talk about the last one? Here's the deal with the last one. The state legislature voted to punch up the free and reduced program, and now it's state law that if a kid doesn't pay or they're behind in their payments, that you still give them a lunch, and there's some protections there. So that was all good stuff. That's by law, no option there. But they threw in the press packet that we have the option of giving families and publicizing in our website or whatever we give to families to share information, the what they call the Hunger-Free Bill of Rights. And the Hunger-Free Bill of Rights is pretty much a summary of these federal protections for families. We don't do that right now, and we just weren't sure if we should rush again right into putting something like that in there. Sorry, because I know the next logical question is, well, what is in the Hunger Free? And they sent us the policy and the recommendation without the information about what that is. So we're in the process of looking to see what exactly that says. But we thought we'd still bring it up to just get your initial reaction. Do you think that's something that we should make available to our families so they know what their rights are with regard to free and reduced lunch?
Joe, I have the sentence that is to, the optional sentence.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it?
Mm-hmm.
The optional sentence that the board can choose to adopt is: during an appeal, students previously receiving food service benefits shall not have their benefits terminated. Students who were denied benefits shall not receive benefits during the appeal.
That's what they added to that Hunger-Free Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Yeah. But we never published the Hunger-Free Bill of Rights to begin with. That's why we brought it up.
Okay.
Okay. Any?
Are you thinking this is something to like pass out at registration, or are you thinking this is just to put a link on the website in case people are looking?
We could do it any way that we saw fit, but the implication is that you would communicate that the same way you communicate other things to your parents. And we're moving toward electronic
That's what I was going to ask.
registration
Is like,
materials.
I don't
So
want to
it
print
would-
out 2,000
No,
copies
no,
of
it
it,
would,
but,
it would be
No.
electronic,
okay.
as part of either registration or a link on the website.
Just so I'm clear on this, there's no guidelines right now about how we have to notify.
There is
Families?
not a mandate that you have to, that you have the responsibility to share those rights. You can tell by the way they write it that they'd encourage you to do that. But we just thought we better check with the rest of the board.
So our current procedure or policy or whatever, I think it's a procedure since it's not a policy, is that if a kid is hungry or doesn't, the free and reduced kids, everybody knows. The school knows, the secretarial staff knows, and then they, they're taken care of. Students who do not bring their lunches or forgot their lunches, we don't let our kids go hungry. So we do provide for the lunch.
Correct.
And we normally let that thing accumulate, or we'll just send a reminders. But at the end, we do send a reminder if they have the ability to pay, and if they're not on free and reduced, that
That's a whole different thing.
you owe us
Yes.
so and so amount, right?
Yes,
But we do
that's-
provide them food anyway.
Absolutely.
My question is, once this gets in, when we put does this impair our ability of collecting funds from people who can pay but just forgot their lunch at home?
The two are completely separate, and I would want to say that, no, that will not impair us.
Okay.
That's a whole different process, and this is written for a completely different reason. So I think we would have no trouble separating the two.
Okay.
I mean, are we thinking that there's a population who have not been identified or receive free and reduced who deserve it?
No.
So then that's why I was kind of confused. It's
We
like-
were back and forth on it.
I mean,
Should
I'm
this
fine
just-
publishing it.
Yeah,
I just don't
should-
know who it's going to reach that isn't already been reached.
Right.
But I am
Yeah,
fine
but
publishing
that's
it.
what I wanted to know is like, first of all, for
Be nice to see
a
it first.
collection, and then who is it targeted towards? Like who is the, if they're already identified, then they're already
I
getting.
don't know. It's just like an extra safeguard. I don't know. Usually these things come about because some district had a problem and there was some issue
Right.
that was resolved in court.
Somebody didn't do what they were supposed to
Right.
do. Right.
What, like
It's
putting
not
hot
an
on the
issue
side of
in our
coffee?
district that I know of.
Yes.
And
It's like putting hot on the side of a coffee cup.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we see it first before we?
Yeah, how about I bring this one back once we have a copy of it? And then we can just decide, do we want to pop this in our
These are
website?
policies. These
Yeah.
are policies,
Right.
not even procedures.
Right. Okay,
So,
good. So we'll vote on the board oath, and the other two, we will do a little bit more information,
Back up.
bring it back,
clear-
and you'll vote on this next time. And guess what? Press number 100 is already in place, so
my.
our subcommittee will meet at least one more time this spring.
Don't feel bad. 99.9% of districts are never caught up with press.
Yeah.
They keep throwing more things at you than you can actually do.
I
So,
hope this was a
very
little less
good.
painful, a little more efficient. Is everybody okay with how the subcommittee approached this?
Thank you for
Yeah,
doing it.
Okay,
Not
thank
less
you.
painful for Wes, but that's no problem. Just kidding.
Actually, we didn't
I
need.
thought we were
I
all
see
supposed
this.
to take a turn.
So Wes is doing the next one, and then it comes back up for.
Okay, we'll take turns.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's
but
probably
Wes will
good
do
for
two,
everybody
and then the next one comes
Not
out.
really.
Okay.
Jason, you want to squeeze one more in before you go?
Jason, I have it right here.
Nope.
Okay,
Okay.
I stop.
Do I have a
I
motion
only have
to
2 digits. I
adjourn?
stop at 99.
Okay.
Motion.
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Move that we adjourn.
I second.
Motion by Robin, seconded by Wes. All in favor?
Don't go yet, that's just one.
So, any opposed? Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. The next is, I'd like to call to order the regular business meeting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Jason Chon,
Here.
George Beavitt,
Here.
Victoria Helander-Heiser.
Here.
Robin Cleek,
Here.
Wes Bourne here, Matt Jacobs,
Here.
Sonali Patton.
Here. 7 present, 0 absent. The first presentation, anybody from the public wishes to comment?
We have.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Come on up.
My name is Nancy I have kids in Aspen Elementary, and I'm sorry I'm kind of late to the party. I understand that. it didn't caught my attention that you already voted on cutting those positions for 14 paraprofessionals, right? 14 teacher assistants.
14 positions,
14
not
positions, so-
particular people.
Yes, not yet,
Yes.
not yet,
Mhm.
but it will be, right? I just thought maybe you can meet us, parents and teachers, somewhere in the middle and create part-time positions. I know that District 21, they have some because they have kindergarten that is not a full day yet. It's for 3 hours a day, but even 3 hours a day, if there is a teacher assistant, maybe it's for a group reading, maybe it's for one-on-one instructions. Let's say one session is about 30 minutes. It's one teacher assistant can be able to help 6 kids. It's 6 times better than 0, right? And they're not getting paid for lunch breaks. They're not getting paid for days when school is off or holidays or stuff. So maybe, just maybe, you will play with those numbers. And you see, it's not going to be a significant amount of money for a school district, but it's significant help for teachers because if in their classroom, it's not a PE, it's not a lunch, again, it's not a recess, but in their classroom, there is a kid who needs extra help, who needs extra attention. So, and teacher doesn't have this assistant. That means not only this teacher can't help this child, but he can't teach other kids because his attention is called to this child. So maybe some parents watching this meeting, I don't know, and think like, my kid is not an AP, it's not my battle. But actually everyone benefits when kids have their assistant, their help with their emotions, with their learning, everything. And it's gonna have actually pretty big impact on how students perform at the end of the year. And I think teachers and parents will mostly agree with me most of the time. So maybe next meeting you will have those numbers. And of course I want to hear yes. But if you say no, can you please explain why no? Why can't we have part-time teacher assistants for paraprofessional positions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is technology assessment presentation. Joe?
Okay, Dimitri, if you can help me with moving the slides along and such, I'm going to do a little, use a PowerPoint just to help collect thoughts and organize this discussion. Oh. Okay. So, the very best school districts out there are school districts that have a commitment to continuous growth, to never resting on its laurels, never thinking good is good enough, but always pushing it forward. And so that's been something that Mark and I came in believing, something that we know Dr. Hannigan believes in, and something that's been part of this district for years. So if you have a commitment to continuous growth, that means every so often you have to take a deep dive into things that you're doing to make sure that they're the very best they could be, that they're supported the very strongest it could be, and to make sure you're set up for the future. So I wanted to tonight share with you our intention to take that deep dive this spring into the area of technology. There's so many areas within a school system. Why technology? I want to start by saying, this doing a deep dive and being committed to continuous growth does not mean that there's a huge issue, that there's big holes, that we're picking an area that is in terrible shape. It should not be viewed that way. I think we could do one of these type assessments with everything we do in the district, whether it be special ed, the way we go about our curriculum and instruction. But why start with tech? We thought tech was an important place to start because of the first bullet mainly. And tech is the one thing that affects how well everything happens in the district. It truly affects every child from, whatever computer device they have, but it also affects all of the adults, all of the departments. There's a huge relationship between a smooth technology infrastructure program and expectations and how efficient and effective everybody in the school district could be. There's also safety issues and security issues. And if you're going to do a model of continuous growth, seemed like a good spot to start. Also, as Mark and I will tell you, when we come in, we had new eyes, new ears here, new perspective, two guys who came in just as a year of interim. And we took a look at what's in place. And you board members remember, you asked us to take a look, share some things. And I have to tell you, tech seemed to be an area of consensus to take a look at. Again, not because it's broken, not because it's in need of a terrible fix, but because it's important. And so that's why we wanted to take a look at doing an assessment of our tech program. So what's that all about? And by the way, don't worry, I'm not going through the slides. Those are there mainly to help me organize my thoughts. And Mark would probably chew me out after the meeting if I did. So we won't be doing that. But what we wanted to do was really simple. Let's take a look at every component of technology. And there's really kind of two halves. There's the nuts and bolts, infrastructure, security, network half, and there's the teaching and learning half, and the tool for instruction, and the improvement of instruction half. We want to take a look at both halves because they're both very important. And the model that we want to do this assessment with is very simple. Sorry if it's a little education-ease, but I tried to tone it down. What's the current reality? With all of these, let's take a good look at each of these things. What things are we doing really well? What things have we been struggling with? What things do we maybe not have enough resources with? And let's compare the current reality with what's out there as the expectation, the best practice. So if you look at where we're at and best practice, in between those two things is a gap. So we educators like to call this a gap analysis. Let's take a look at the gap. And the gap at the end of this can be some specific ideas for board consideration. All an assessment is where we're at, what's best practice, what's the gap, and school board and administrators, here's some ideas to close that gap. So I went out and looked for companies that could help us do this. And surprisingly, there's not a whole lot out there. There's tech companies all over the place, but the ones that know what a school district is all about is a more limited. And I wanted to only use and talk to companies that had a presence in schools. So I talked to Net 56, Heartland, and a company called All Covered. I laid out just what I laid out to you, those four simple steps to do a gap analysis. They each told me what they could do for me. They sent us proposals, very different, very specific kind of proposals. You see the price ranges up there. And you see some of the reference checking and feedback gathering that we did. When it all was said and done, price-wise, feedback-wise, positive experience-wise, we felt real comfortable with Net 56. And that's the company that we would like to conduct the assessment. Just a quick little background board. When a project is less than $25,000, an administration has the right to go ahead without board permission. We could have done that. Mark and I, though, I think you know us by now, we're good communicators. We follow best practice, and best practice is doing your due diligence. So we actually did more than we had to do. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but I just wanted to let you know that we actually put greater expectations on this than we needed to. I'm feeling really good about the Net 56 proposal and price. Abe was able to do a budget check, and this is actually in our budget. In fact, this is much less than Abe was first worried we were going to have. So budget-wise, we're good too. So that's what the recommendation is. And I'm just going to now touch upon the 4 aspects of what Net 56 is going to do for us. First of all, if long as everyone's cool with this will probably start within a couple of weeks. It should take about 6 to 8 weeks to finish, and they promised that they would have it done before Mark and I leave, so we could have them come and present and at least give you the first results. What you guys do with this is going to be up to you and your new superintendent. Mark and I had the goal to just get the data for you. That's what this is all about. So the first thing Net 56 is going to do is they're going to analyze our current infrastructure, organizational environment that's currently in place. That's going to be very comprehensive. Everything, as I said, from security to the infrastructure to the network, do we have enough power to expand, all of those kinds of things. The only other bullet I want to bring to your attention is the third one. A big part of this process is going to be talking to people. Dimitri and his tech team are going to be very involved in this. They're going to be key players, and it's not an adversarial thing. It's, we're hoping that a lot of good practices that we have going on are going to be affirmed. It's not a negative, what can we find wrong? So Dimitri's going to, and his team will work. They're going to interview all of the tech team. And later in the process, they're going to go out and interview principals and teachers to make sure that we haven't lost sight of the teaching and learning part. And that was one of the things I really liked about Net 56. It's not like they had a model that they were going to just force on us. They were really wanting input from the players, that are involved. So first they take a look at that. Secondly, they're going to take a look at what we have in place as far as our vision. We do have a long-range plan. Every district is different. Ours is there. It's mainly focused on the one-to-one initiative and some corresponding teaching and learning issues. So they're going to take a look at that. They're going to see what we have in place that supports that. And they're going to, again, this notion of gap. They're going to be looking, well, if this is your vision and this is the reality, wow, I think these 5 things are great, but you might want to think about these 3 things. And they're going to talk about some internal changes that might be helpful for board consideration. Then they're going to take a look at the internal network. Here's where security is going to be a big factor. And they're going to take a look at internal and external processes and also cybersecurity. Another neat thing that they're going to do is come in, they have a model and a tool for inventory and keeping it updated. And to demonstrate how it works, they're going to do it for us. So we have our own process for this. And so we're already ahead of the game as far as that goes, but we're going to get a brand new set of eyes taking a look at that. And that was kind of a cool extra that I didn't even ask them for. And then finally, to wrap it up, they're going to present to us a gap analysis report, which is exactly what it says. They will tell us things that we are currently doing that are great, that are working, that we should keep doing. And then they're going to give us some ideas on how we could improve in some areas. And remember, they're going to look at structures as well as not just nuts and bolts and things. They're going to look at, is the tech department structured in its most efficient manner? Are there some other options, other ways to structure a department or take a look at things? These are all suggestions. We can, take a look at what they suggest and have good, rich, deep conversations with this data. They'll present the report in full, so they will come back when this is done. We'll have a good chance to read the report before the meeting, have a bunch of questions in mind, and then it's great. I get to hand it to Pete, and Pete can take you to the next step once you get that data. So Mark and I are very excited about this. We both worked with Net 56. These are really good people. I think they're going to do a great job for us. Can I answer any questions or any comments that I can do for you guys?
I don't know if this is a totally harebrained idea,
From
but
you, no.
watch it. So when they're conducting these interviews, of course, with parents or guardians present, would it be possible to put together a focus group of some students from
That's
the
a
middle school
great
level?
idea. That is not
They have some
harebrained.
very strong opinions on the Chromebooks.
I did this in another district after we did a one-to-one.
Yeah.
And the best feedback I got was I bought some pizza for fifth graders.
Right.
And I invited them to lunch to just talk to me. And wow, it was so cool to hear their perspective.
Nobody will be more honest than a bunch of middle schoolers with a Chromebook.
Yeah.
And pizza.
No.
Yes.
And pizza.
And
Chromebooks are
pizza.
not iPads,
No.
so we already know.
So Robin, that's a great idea. I will make
So,
sure
I mean, obviously, with
that I mention
parent
that.
consent
to them.
and their
Yeah, they
present,
would
you
have
know,
to get permission.
yeah.
Great idea.
So you said that both of you guys had positive experience with this company. Can you give us a little insight
Net
into how that works?
56 is got some of our, as clients, some of our neighbors,
Okay.
Diamond Lake, Deerfield, Wheeling, Prospect Heights, just a lot of similar type districts where they've been for a long time. So real positive stuff.
When we were in my previous district, we were back in 2005 trying to start a one-to-one initiative. And at that point, there were very few, if any of those even happening in Illinois. Net 56 was the only company that could even prepared to talk to us and was helpful to us in setting that up.
They're local,
Yeah.
Deer Park.
Yeah,
So,
they're right here.
15, 20 minutes away.
Better.
Anything else? Well, we're excited about
Good.
this. We'll
Good
keep
job.
you informed,
Thank you.
and we will be back when the results are in. Great.
Thank you.
Next is the consent agenda items, which includes board meeting minutes from the, what is that, from March 11th, expenditure report, the Amex report, the kindergarten cost log, job sharing request, personnel report. Anybody wants to pull anything out?
Can we pull out the job sharing request?
Okay. Do I have a motion for the rest of the consent agenda items from 15.1, 15.2, 15.3, 15.4, and 15.6?
And 7.
15 points.
And 7.
And 7. That's the approval of
that's-
consent
Oh.
agenda items as presented.
Duh.
I move that we I move that we approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Robin, seconded by George.
No,
I
it
have
was
a roll-
Vicky.
It was
Sorry,
Vicky.
Vicky.
Sounds just like George.
No, I didn't
know how
even
to
hear
throw your
it.
voice there.
I'm sorry, I didn't even hear it. I just saw George looking at me. I just assumed that
I was
was
trying to point at Vicky to.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Jason Tron,
Aye.
George Fevet,
Aye.
Victoria Heelanderheiser,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Wes Paul and I, Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Smelly Bottles.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. Job sharing request / help assistant. For discussion?
I just had a couple more questions. Sorry, because I know I already sent like a dozen questions and Dr. Friedman answered most of them. But I guess the only one I thought of since then is, or the one that I guess I'm not satisfactory in is, if we grant this request and are moving some nurses around as a result, I'm still concerned about the capacity of potentially one person handling all of Town Line and Dual if the other person's absent that day, when it's possible that the person left behind is a health assistant and not a certified nurse. I'm just thinking of population, like, would we need a sub? How easy is it to find a sub? How much do those subs cost? And how often do we anticipate that would happen based upon attendance at IEP meetings and that sort of thing?
Renee, I see you nodding.
Renee's on top of this, so
Yeah,
maybe
go ahead,
she can
Renee.
allay your fears.
Are those easy to find?
We go through an agency,
Okay.
and so for most of the time, we are able to get a sub right away. We'll say sometimes on a Friday of a holiday, we might have some difficulties,
How much are those subs per day?
They're about $50 an hour.
Okay.
A bit of backtracking because some of the this is a job sharing for nurses and health assistants. So one of the questions that might have been answered during some of the questions is this job sharing, is it temporary, permanent? Is it hourly per day? Is it per week job sharing?
The job share has to be requested each year, so it is not like you do it once and it's ongoing. So according to.
But is it for a full year? Do they want it for
Yes.
6?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
requesting for the full
The
year.
2019,
And then
2020.
the job sharing is going to be 2 days, 2, 3, 3, 2. I mean,
The way the
what-
schedule is set up, we have not talked about the schedule. We just know it'll be evenly distributed.
Lynn, has there been any in the past like this? Is it usually,
Nurses or teachers?
no, is it the way the schedule's set up? Is it usually just,
Administratively.
yeah,
I haven't had any, I mean, once it goes through the board, if whoever's building, one is coming to mind, worked with administration, they worked between the two teachers, and it was 1.0 position divided amongst the two. In the case most
Yeah.
recently, it was 0.5, and then they worked that out with the administration.
Basically, as I've said to those that I've talked to on the phone, staff members have a right to request this. It's, job sharing, leave language is there. It's just up to us whether to approve it or not. So whether we want to manipulate it a little or change it a little, we can do that administratively afterwards. It's, do we approve of the job sharing is the real question that we have on the table right now.
Does the district have a policy with regard to
Yes.
job sharing?
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's for teachers, support staff?
Well, I'm assuming that
Or
this
everything.
applies to everybody since support
Okay.
staff is covered by our association.
Okay.
I mean, my only question, of course, is always what's the impact to the students, and is there any impact by having alternating nurses back and forth for especially the kids that report daily for things like whether it's a booster of an ADHD medication or insulin or whatever. If there's no impact to the student, I don't really have a problem with the concept of job sharing.
We
But,
talked with Renee today a little bit about that again, and in your expertise, Renee, do you feel that this would have an impact?
I think the buildings will be covered 100%. I'm not worried about that. And I do think that both of the nurses that have applied for job share have developed relationships with all of the students in their building. I think, especially those kids that frequently come to the nurse's office to get medication, they're going to develop those relationships with them. So I don't have concerns about the students not being served appropriately.
Okay. Do we save any money? Like, is there any benefit?
Don't know
savings
if
or-
they're on an insurance plan or not, but as part-time, they would have less coverage insurance-wise.
Thank you.
This does impact, and I think we'd want to have a conversation with the two people. It does impact their long-term pension by going from full to part-time.
Okay.
But that's a decision that they are making by
And they know
going
that?
after
Okay.
this part-time status.
We'll
which is
make
really
sure
what
they
it
do.
is.
We'll
Yep.
make sure.
Okay. All right.
We didn't ask two people to job share.
Right.
That
It was their
brought to us.
request. Right.
Yes.
I get it. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
Somebody.
I move that we approve the job sharing request as presented.
I second.
Motion by Robin, seconded by Bess.
Losing steam.
Could I get a roll call?
Jason Tron,
Aye.
George Fivet,
Aye.
Victoria Helander Heiser,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
West One I, Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. The next is action item, which is the board policy 2.2:80, which is the board member oath and conduct that we just went through. Could I have a motion? I motion to approve the recommended updates to policy 2:80, board member oath and conduct. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Sonali, seconded by
Robin.
Robin. Any discussion? Could I have a roll call, please?
Sonali Patel,
Aye.
Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Victoria Helander Heiser,
Aye.
George Fevitt,
Aye.
Jason Shaw.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. The next is the custodial services contract approval. Can I have a motion? I move
Nobody's
that the
into
Board of
motions
Education
tonight.
approve the
I feel like I've
custodial
done it a bunch.
contract.
I'm trying to give somebody else a
Silence.
turn.
Like thunder.
I move that the Board of Education approve the
Here you
custodial
go.
contract to
Ready?
GSF USA Inc. starting in 2019-20 fiscal year for the base bid amount of $748,324.07. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Sonali, seconded by Matt. Do I have a discussion? Could I have a roll call, please?
Jason Shaw,
Aye.
George Fevitt,
Aye.
Victoria Helander Heiser,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. Next is the tower roof replacement contract approval. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the Tower Road Replacement Project WeatherGuard Roofing for the base bid proposal of $185,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Whoa.
Oh, George. Motion by Wes, seconded by George. Any discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Sonali Patel,
Aye.
Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Robin Cleek,
Aye.
Victoria Helander Heiser,
Aye.
George Fevitt,
Aye.
Jason Shaw.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. In the President's report, welcome back from spring break. Good luck to all the kids who are still doing the IAR assessments. Good luck to our Dylan and Nick who are going for bowling to individual state, and to the girls team who's going as a team for state. So good luck to the kids, and that's it. Okay. Superintendent's report. You've got anything?
Nothing
No.
else.
Nothing else.
We've done enough.
Any topic for future meetings?
I had a couple quick suggestions.
Yes.
Lots of us were in attendance at the village meeting on Wednesday, which was a blast. And
Sorry, I missed it.
you can watch it on YouTube. Just you have 3 hours to spare.
I got picked on by every name possible
That's facetious.
configuration, so that's the gist of the whole thing.
Well, just remind them you're Dr. Patel. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that somebody reach out to Centennial, the developer of Hawthorne Mall, and have a conversation with them. Whether it's with or without the village present, I don't really care. But I do think that we should stay in contact with them. They seem to be completely blindsided by the fact that they might have any impact on the school district whatsoever.
When they're building 450 apartments.
Right, when they're building 450 apartments. So I would like to make that suggestion, and then other suggestion based on Mrs. Titova, is that your last name? Based on your comment, obviously the board is not in the practice of undoing decisions that were recently made. Is there a way we can provide a better explanation of the impact or lack thereof to students by these 14 positions not being renewed? I mean,
I thought we did that, but I don't know what additional information we would add.
okay.
Let us talk it through. Let us see if there's something we
I just, based upon community feedback, I'm not sure everybody really understands
Yeah.
the outcome of that decision.
Okay. Let's
Whether they
give
agree
Mark
with it
and
or
I a
not,
chance.
I'm not sure people
We'll
really
see if
understand.
maybe there's something we can do to
Well, I
better
mean,
communicate.
if people don't, if there's not consensus to have you guys spend your time on that, then, it was just a suggestion.
I have a motion to go into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. 5 ILCS 120/2, as amended by PA 93-0057. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Sonali, seconded by Vicky. Could I have a roll call, please?
Jason Tron,
Aye.
George Fiat,
Aye.
Victoria Helander-Heiser,
Aye.
Robin Cleek,
Aye.
West Point, aye. Matt Jacobs,
Aye.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. We can take a 5-minute break for the community and public to disperse. And do we want to move? Can we do?